athletic directors,
Sorry.
officials, and several other groups that get involved in that. So the first rule change, the state of Massachusetts already has. They're talking about putting in a shot clock. They're saying a 35-second shot clock. We already have a 30-second shot clock. So we're just going to jump right over that. The next rule change is headgear. We always kind of get into fashion police, it seems, when we get out on the court, and no coach wants us walking up to them and saying, oh, by the way, number 42 and number 53 have to go change their t-shirts. That's the last thing you people want to hear from us before a game, is that we're being fashion police. So they're talking about headgear. Headgear can be worn for religious reasons or for safety reasons. So they've added the religious reasons that you don't need a note. So if a player comes in and they have to wear something on their head for religious, it's fine, as long as it's not going to injure anybody or it's not going to fall off 6 or 7 times during the game or has to slow things down. As far as headgear for medical reasons, say a kid has several concussions, but is still being given the okay to play, they can wear a safety type thing on their head, provided it's not of a hard plastic or something that somebody else will get hurt. It's kind of a weird thing. We don't see it very often. I don't think many coaches are going to let a kid play that has a ton of head injuries, but you never know what happens in that case. The third rule change is, let me double check to make sure I'm not missing something here, sorry. For some reason I've missed something here. Oh, sorry. The signal for a team control foul. We used to just pump our fist out and give a direction for team control foul. Now they want us to actually call that as a player control foul, because somewhere in the country, I don't think it was happening around here. Our guys and gals that are coaches are certainly smart enough to understand what we're calling with that. But they want us to go behind our head the same way we do for a player control foul call. Those are what the Federation has come up with for rule changes this year. I don't think that there'll be too many questions on that. I don't think they're going to affect our game at all, because the one that really has to do with basketball, we already have with the shot clock. They do come out every year with points of emphasis. There is one or two that are very, very interesting this year, in my opinion. One of them is they want the officials to be patient while calling a jump ball. So they want us to be patient while calling a jump ball. So they want to make sure that there are actually 2 players that have control of the ball before we blow the whistle. Some officials are very, very quick with the way they call a jump ball, because they feel only bad things are going to happen when players go to the floor. But we want to stay within the rules and within the regulations. So that will have an effect on how the game should be officiated. The other thing that will have an effect on the way the game should be officiated is coaches calling timeout. They want to make sure that the officials know before granting a timeout that the team calling timeout has control of the ball. One of the biggest things that we have happen in a ball game, and it could happen at a very big time in the ball game, is the lead official will have action in front of them with players on the floor. And the ball will be rolling around. And the next thing you know, the coach from the other end of the floor comes running up to half court, screaming well, I shouldn't say screaming, requesting a timeout. And the trail official reacts to the coach calling the timeout, comes in, blows the whistle, and grants the coach timeout without knowing who has control of the basketball. Once that timeout is granted, it's assumed that that team had control of the ball. That's not always the case. We all know that's not always the case. And we want to make sure that our officials get better at that as a point of emphasis. How we're going to teach that is we're just going to try to teach patience. So as a head coach, you may be requesting a timeout and you may feel you are getting ignored. You're not necessarily getting ignored. Hopefully that official is trying to determine if your team had the basketball first. In this case, the timeout could be called late. And if the other coach now complains that, they didn't have the ball, what we will say is the request was, the timeout was requested when the team had the ball. So we're going to kind of be late on a few things. So be patient with that. We want to make sure we get it right because you've all had it go against you and you've all had it go for you in those situations. Another point of emphasis that we have is the traveling, the Euro step, the jump stop, and what they can legally do after a jump stop by lifting their foot to either pass, shoot, or call timeout. They can't lift their foot, step. They would have traveled at that stage. We showed a film. We had about a 25-minute film with our interpretation that we showed. It was actually very good, showing the Euro step, showing the jump stop, and trying to train our officials. We are having a mechanics session this Sunday that we will also try to give some floor demonstrations of the Euro step and things and how that all works. I think coaches are a lot further along than officials when it comes to the Euro step. I think what we look at a lot of times is a kid will make a beautiful move on a Euro step and we'll come off the end line and call a travel on it. The second time we see the same move, we realize, yeah, the first time it wasn't a travel. So we're trying to get better at that and instructing our officials in that. So those are the keys to what the Federation wants us to work on. The other one is unsporting conduct between coaches, players, bench personnel, fans, and how we handle that. They want us to kind of clamp down on that as best we can. We're not telling people to go out there and be scientists. My feeling is hear what you are supposed to hear. If there is a problem in the stands, we are going to turn that over to game administration. We don't want officials handling any situations in the stands, nor do you as coaches and administrators want us dealing with things in the stands. So we should have virtually no conversation with fans at all in the past. I mean, we can be polite, of course, to them and things, but we should not be having conversations saying, if you keep it up, I'm going to have you thrown out of here. We should just go to the game administrator and say, down in the right-hand corner of the gym, can you please deal with that situation? Because they all know the situation's there. Let's talk about the MIAA. So the MIAA has actually come up with some things that I think will help the game, and I believe are some good changes. The first one is the 10-second backcourt count. We've always had a 10-second backcourt count in the boys' games. We will now, starting this year, have a 10-second backcourt count in the girls' game. So that is going to be a major change. It's going to be a count exactly as we do in the boys' games. So when the ball is thrown in, they have 10 seconds to get it across a line. If the ball is deflected out of bounds and it is going to be retained by the same team, we'll call it, if team A is going to keep the ball, when they throw it in, they are going to have a new 10-second count. So you will have 10 seconds to get the ball over the midcourt line from the points of your throw-ins. Interesting change. That's been coming for a while. They finally got that through. Those of you that have been coaching defense really, really well and want the 5-second count, we are no longer going to have a 5-second count in the front court, closely guarded on the dribble. We will have a 5-second count with holding the ball. So we used to be able to have a 5-second count holding. The kid could start a dribble. They would have a 5-second count on that. They pick up their dribble. They would have another 5-second count. Now it's just going to be holding in the front court. And that's both girls and boys basketball that changes for. So no longer on the dribble. I think it's a good change because I think we would get confused, because if a kid set a pick and actually the player remained closely guarded, the 5-second count was supposed to continue. And we started getting pretty good at it, but I think that's a good change. The other change by the MIAA is on a kick ball. So we know we have a 30-second shot clock. If a kick occurs at 15 seconds or less on the clock, on the shot clock, you will reset it to 15 seconds. So if you get a kick ball at 7 seconds, we're going to reset it to 15. If it's above 15 seconds, so if there's a kick at 22 seconds, it's going to remain at 22 seconds. The only situation I see that could be a problem with this is now the shot clock operator has to reset to 15 seconds. The team comes down, the clock's going fine, 15, 14, 13, right down. We have a shot that goes up, it hits the rim, it's rebounded by either team. The shot clock resets, and it resets to 15 seconds instead of 30 seconds. Some gyms will have the ability to have the two clocks quick to reset to 15 and automatically will go back to 30. Others, I think, in some of the older gyms, may have to manually put that back in. So we're going to have to be aware of that situation on that. So, like I say, if a kick happens with 15 seconds or less, you will reset to 15. If it's above 15, we'll basically stay at that number. Those are the rule changes from the MIAA and the Federation. I guess if we have any questions, Dean, do we want to open it up to questions? And
we do. If you guys have questions, you can utilize the chat feature. If you don't want to come on, if you want to come on and just join us in a conversation, you turn on your video and have a conversation with us, we'd gladly try to answer at that capacity as well. So we do have some questions coming into the chat at this point in time. Let me go back here and read them. You did answer this one already from Elizabeth. Will the girls basketball have a 10-second backcourt call this year? Gus, you covered that, correct?
Yep.
All right, continuing on. So after a shot, it resets to 15. Is that correct, Gus?
No,
Goes back to
no,
30.
so you're, after a shot, you are going to have to, it will reset to 30 because we have a 30-second shot clock. And I guess that's my fear of what might happen is we're going to have a kick at 12 seconds. We're going to reset the shot clock to 15. Now a shot goes up, it's rebounded by either team, and we're going to reset to 30. I'm hoping it doesn't automatically go to 15. We're going to have to be aware of that if that happens. Does that answer the question for that person? Who was that? Was that Mike?
Yep, I believe so. Just to clarify, on an offensive rebound with under 15 on a shot clock, does the clock go back to 15 or 30?
No, it goes to 30.
30.
So our shot clock will always be 30 on a gained possession. So on a gained possession after a rebound or a steal, or anytime the ball is given to the other team, you will have 30 seconds. It's just on the kick ball that it will go to 15 if it's under 15. Just on the kick.
From Ryan, did I hear that the shot clock is 35 seconds versus 30? That
So, yeah, we did have, there is a conversation in that in the federation rule, it states 35 seconds. However, the Massachusetts MIAA rule still has it at 30 seconds. So if you were to actually read the rule changes in federation, it's a proposed rule for next year. It actually does state 35, but we will be playing with a 30-second shot clock. To the best of my knowledge, they have not changed that at all.
Is the 5-second call pre-dribble as well? For example, player A catches the ball in the post and holds it for 5 seconds. Is that a 5-second call?
So if he is closely guarded, so holding the ball, closely guarded in legal guarding position, which is turned and facing with their feet on the floor to establish legal guarding position within 6 feet, you will now have a 5-second count, and that would include a player in the post. So if he gets the ball in the post and he holds and he's pivoting, you would have a 5-second call going on. But if you think about that, if it's a post player and he's in the paint, you would most likely have a 3-second call before you would have a 5-second call. So in order for that 5-second call to start, it's no different than the rule last year. It just now, there is no 5-second count when dribbling. So we used to say that the player had to get head and shoulders by to break the 5-second call on the dribble. That's no longer needed.
Any other questions from coaches in the forum tonight?
Yeah, I have a question, Dean. This is Paul
Go ahead, Paul.
House.
Hi, Paul.
How you doing? So on the holding of the ball, the 5-second count. So if that happens in the backcourt, that's not a violation?
No, there is no 5-second count in the backcourt. There never was in, or there never was supposed to be, maybe I should state. It was only in the front court that the 5-second count was. You would have a 10-second count going on now in the backcourt.
Sure. And I just have a comment. I applaud the point of emphasis on the Euro step and the jump stop. As coaches, we spend a lot of time teaching that stuff from the 3rd grade up, and it's really frustrating when you're teaching it, the kids adopt it, and it's travel. It's really, really frustrating.
Right, yeah, and the Euro step has now been around long enough so that we should be getting better at it.
I've been in games So if you think about when we were young, right? When you do a layup, it was always 1-2 layup, right? As
Right.
you're in the dribble and move. Well, the Euro step is the same thing. You're making a dribble and you're going 1-2, but you're just kind of crossing your legs. And it's so many refs say to me last year, Euro step's illegal. It's a travel. And it's like, it was really frustrating because we teach it, and the jump stop is the same way. If you watch Villanova play, they've redefined the jump stop, and their players and us coaches are now, the simultaneously landing in the paint and then going through step throughs after that is really good basketball. And when you get penalized for that, it's really frustrating.
Right. So it all depends on the official now has to be aware of when the player picks up their dribble on the Euro step, especially.
Yep.
Because you have to be an airborne player and pick up your dribble in order to do a legal Euro step.
Yep.
So if my right foot is forward and I'm airborne when I pick up my dribble, I land on my right foot, which becomes my pivot foot. I jump to my left foot, pick up my pivot foot, and I lay the ball in. That right foot can't come back down for it to be, as you guys know. And that's the key, is we have to have our officials find what the initial pivot foot is. Because if that kid picks up his dribble with his left foot still on the ground, now steps to his right, then goes to his left, he's traveled.
Sure.
And it can be quick, and they can cover a lot of ground with it.
Yeah.
As far as the jump stop, it's the same thing. If they land on 1 foot and jump to 2, they don't have a pivot foot.
Sure.
If they pick up their dribble and land on 2, now they do have they could have either one of them.
That's the key.
Yeah,
is
nice.
That's what we're really teaching, is to land on 2 simultaneously, because then you can do either foot and you can step through and score, or you can kick out for threes. And it's just, like I said, I applaud you guys for having that as a point of emphasis.
Now, while I got you going, you have scrimmages at the beginning of the year
Yes.
with officials.
Yes.
So do yourself and us a favor, if you would, and all of you in this case, if you have players that are really good at a Euro step, take 5 minutes with the officials and show them what you are teaching your players as far as the Euro step, as far as the jump stop and the drop step and things like that. Even a good drop step move in the low post. Just spend 5 minutes, spend 2 minutes with the officials. And we're going to tell our officials that you guys and gals are going to be willing to do this.
Sure.
Because that's an excellent training tool for us. And now if that official has your team, they're going to say, okay, this is a team that has this kid and this kid that can do this and this, And it would be really beneficial to all of us.
Yeah, we always have the officials talk to the kids about points of emphasis, right?
Yep.
In our scrimmages. We've never said, oh, let us show you something, because we don't want to be portrayed the wrong way. But I think it's a great suggestion, so we'll try it.
Well, I mean, most of us, I think Kevin McHale, for his first 3 years in the league, got called travels. He finally had to do a whole presentation to the officials.
Yeah.
Video presentation to the officials of his moves that weren't travels.
And every one of us
They
have those.
actually stopped it. So something similar to that certainly would be beneficial to us.
And we all have those instructional videos, and we're still teaching the same stuff.
Yep.
Hi, guys. Corey Phillips. Can I add something to this?
Yeah.
I do you agree that I don't think it's identifying the pivot foot. I know it is, but it's the really good players. It's when they pick the ball up.
Yeah.
And a player on the move, and you watch NBA players and really they're so good at manipulating the ball pickup that I think that's what confuses the refs, is like, well, the ball's not technically picked up yet with the really good players. They're still technically can dribble again. So maybe talking to your refs about that, is it's the ball pickup is it doesn't have to be I have it with two hands to pick the ball up. I can still be dribbling, manipulate that dribble, and hold that pickup to get that back foot in the air before I start the Euro.
Yes, yeah, you could still be in the middle of a dribble when you start that Euro, both feet off the floor. Yeah. The ball doesn't have to be in two hands and come to
Right.
rest.
So I don't know how you mentioned it with the refs, but as a coach, I know I kind of use that way of, look, you like, if you slow it down, the ball's technically not picked up here on a
Right.
player going full speed. And I think, I've seen it. I had the pleasure of coaching a girl who was the best Euro, and she got called for it more because I think it kind of shocked a lot of the rest with girls doing it.
Right.
So it's even transferred into the girls' game now, with players being able to do that. So it's certainly a high level move. But yeah, I agree with Paul. We applaud you for doing this.
Yeah, one of the things we try to explain to our officials is just because it looks funny doesn't mean it's wrong. Most of the time, players that are doing the Euro step are doing them correctly. And we need to react a little bit better to them. I'm
Good
not
point.
saying it's still not going to get called, but hopefully we get better at it.
How about from a coach's perspective, anything else that you guys want to share with us? I am recording this. This is going to go out to our entire board, and I'm going to share it with other boards next to us as well, because I think it's important to hear from your perspective what you guys are thinking and how we can provide some clarity from our end as well.
I hate to hold everybody, but I have another question that I've seen called both ways.
Please.
Players shoots. The team, a teammate of the player ball rebounds, and they just whack it into the backcourt off the rebound. Team goes and gets it.
Nothing wrong with it.
Nothing wrong, right? That's not a
No,
back.
so when a shot goes up, there is no longer any team control. So in order to have front court or back court status, you have to have team control and player control to establish status. So when you look at a shot goes up, A shoots it, an A player on the rebound whacks it into the backcourt. There's still no control, and so there's still no front court established. So the
Right.
shot clock hasn't started until that player goes into the backcourt and gets it. Now there's team control.
I've seen it called incorrectly, and I think people get antsy when that happens just because
Yeah.
it looks weird. It looks like, oh wait, they touched it.
Right.
So I don't know if that's a point of emphasis with the refs. It does not happen much, but it does happen.
So we try to go over that every year at some point. It's no different. Another thing is during a throw-in, say you have a sideline throw-in, A throws the ball to a teammate A, it deflects off of their hand and goes into the backcourt. A can go recover that because that center court line, mid-court line doesn't exist until there's team control. So same thing on a rebound, that center court line doesn't exist until there's team control.
Gus, can you
So-
clarify the backcourt violation as someone's dribbling up in the three components it takes to consider losing or gaining front court status?
Yeah, all right. So a player dribbling the ball coming up the floor needs to get both feet and the ball in contact with the front court. So this player could actually go up to the midcourt line, be dribbling in their front court, and bring the ball back to their back court and not have gained front court status. They could have 1 foot over in the ball. They could have 2 feet over with the ball in the backcourt dribbling. You have to get all three components over. But now you have to also remember that while this is going on, we're going to have a 10-second count going on. Just to let you guys know what we also do every year as officials is there is a 75-question refresher exam that we have to take. And it's got all kinds of crazy, crazy questions. And basically what it does is it's supposed to force the officials to get into the rule book. Now, I will say, if we have 175 members in Central Mass taking this test, we may only have 75 of them that are actually doing the test. They're not using it to their advantage the way they should. But we do sit down in one of our meetings and go over that test. Now, we may only go over 25 of the hardest questions, but a lot of them have to do with like that question you just had about A1 shoots the ball on the rebound attempt, B1 bats the ball to the backcourt, it's recovered by A2, A3, official calls a backcourt violation. Is the official correct? The answer to that would be no. So we do have a lot of that goes on.
Hey, Dave, might be a dumb question, but we had a lot of, not a lot, but COVID rules last year. We assume those are gone. And I'll just name a few, right? We didn't have jump balls. We didn't have baseline inbound plays. The handshake, I don't know if there's any feedback on, I haven't heard anything on the handshake. There was one other one that I thought was kind of unique to avoid excessive contact. If it was a tight game late in the game, you know, when you're trying to foul, you just told the official, you know, we're going to foul here. Are we kind of
Yes.
doing away with all those and getting back to basics, or are they keeping any of those?
So as far as I know at this point, those are all gone. That we are going back to playing normal basketball. As far as I know now, we've got between now and December for them to come back and say, oh, by the way, we're going to make these changes. We're going back to this. But no, as far as everything's going right now, we're going back to normal basketball without any of those rules. The only
Where-
one that I'm not quite sure about is if the officials will have to wear masks on the court.
We're being told players, coaches, and officials are all yes, right?
Are all wearing masks
Yeah,
Anyone
as well as the
associated,
fans.
yeah,
as well
anyone
as the
associated.
fans.
while the players are playing also?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
So we're gonna end up with masks on. That's the only. one.
However, interestingly, there is a health committee at the MIA recommending that players and coaches and referees not wear masks and only fans do.
Right,
But that hasn't been acted upon.
right. I think that's what they're pushing for.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be tough with the numbers going up now, right?
I'm
Correct.
just gonna be happy. if back
Have
to
you
some-
got any feedback on handshakes? Is there any direction to the officials on that? Because there was no handshakes last year, and
I'm not a big fan of the handshake to begin with.
neither are the players and coaches. So
That's an MIAA thing.
Right.
This is being recorded. I gotta be careful what I say.
yeah,
We as officials would prefer, once the game is over, to get off the court.
right.
Because only bad things can happen while we're still there observing a handshake. There's enough administrators and things to do that. I myself, as a player, if I lost a ball game, even now, I don't want to shake anybody's hand.
No,
Leave
get out of
them
there.
to the Officials.
Right.
So, one thing not to tell a war story, but I played a lot of competitive softball and we played double headers, and these morons would want to shake hands in between the game.
Yeah,
you know? So,
I agree with you, but
but at this point, I have not heard anything about that. We do have a meeting with the MIAA on Sunday. Sunday, I think at 11 o'clock, that some of this stuff may come out. We also have a mechanics meeting. I don't know what time that's at, but yeah,
At 9 o'clock
9 o'clock.
on
So,
Sunday. Great questions.
do you have any just general basketball questions, rules? And I know you guys don't want to talk about any plays you run or anything like that, secret plays or anything, but anything at all.
I just wanted to clarify the backcourt rule again. So if a team is up pressing for 8 seconds and the team has not brought the ball over the half court and they throw it off a player's foot and they get control back, they get a brand new 10 seconds.
Yes, it's different than the college game.
Yep.
and different in the NBA.
Okay.
So yes, for every throw in, you get a new 10-second count.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, yep.
But are you talking about a live dribble being thrown off a leg and still in the back court with no possession? Because the 10-second count
Oh.
would still continue. If it goes
Right.
out of
If it went out of
bounds,
bounds.
that's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
only time you get a new 10
Yeah, if
seconds.
it went out of bounds, you would get a new 10-second.
Yep.
Just for
Yeah, if it
clarification.
bounces off somebody's leg and you don't recover it in time, you're gonna get called for 10 seconds.
Yep.
But
Okay.
yes, yep,
Thank you.
yeah.
Anybody else like to chime in?
I know Dennis is on here somewhere. He must have some questions.
I can see his name. Hello, Dennis. We won't call him on the spot, just in case he's
No.
not there and just signed in. It's like kids in a classroom.
Yeah.
You get credit for the meeting and the name's there. Hi,
He's
Dennis.
there.
You with
He's
me?
there.
We're,
Yeah.
we're with you.
Yeah, I'm just trying to be a good listener for a change, you know?
Oh, good.
And Paul asked most of my questions anyway.
Yeah,
Uh,
he sent a note out, so he just asked me to do the
Ah.
work.
Well, we had a mid-watch meeting, league meeting last night that covered many of these rules, and although there was some confusion on a number of things, but thank you, Mr. McCarthy, for solving all of those questions. That's good. That's good. But I'm all set for right now.
Good.
I pretty much all set. So thank
Great.
you. And I think, but you know, I if I could chime in on this one, I think it's a great idea, Dean, to have a few more of these as the season goes on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for us, we're all busy and travel gets more difficult. And as the season goes on, issues do pop up. Being problem solvers it helps us coaches to take this information back to our players who ultimately need to hear this. Okay, they ultimately need to have this. So thank you.
You're welcome. Well, we're a resource. I mean, and that's the way that we have to be looked at as officials. I mean, I had the luxury of spending 12 years coaching varsity basketball. I get it. I know what you guys do on the sidelines, and it's hard. Applying the rules to the game from an officiating standpoint is a whole different world. And for those of you who are officials as coaches, I commend you because it's a whole different scope of understanding. Okay.
Thank you.
So
I did notice, Dean, that you have a newsletter coming out, Board 26 Officials newsletter. Is that?
we do. Yeah. And if you want access to that, I'll put all the coaches on there. What it does is it gives I give all the information we have from the board. You guys can have at your fingertips as well. I think it's important that we build this together and offer it up to anybody who wants it.
Yeah, I think that's a grand idea. I think that's very good. So I did notice that. So I will pass that on to my colleagues.
Yep, I'm gonna have all the emails for everybody who's on this call because to log in, I'll get those. And what I will do is I will just keep you in a BCC group and just send information out to you that way. We have to rely on athletic directors to get this out and the signers. So I know we're missing some opportunities to meet with some people, even going down as low as the travel league. We want those coaches to hear us and we want to collaborate together because again, the game becomes better when we all are on the same page.
Well, and that's a good point. It is our responsibility as head coaches to pass this down to our JV, middle
Yep.
school, and travel league coaches as well. And I know some of my coaches have tuned in tonight, which is wonderful. So that we get this. Ultimately, as I said, you got to get this out to the players. They play the game, and they need to understand the rules, and more importantly, the interpretations.
Yep.
And I would just, the COVID has been tough in a lot of areas, and Zoom is painful in a lot of areas, but I think having these types of sessions on Zoom is pretty easy for 31 people to get there as opposed to driving, to a meeting like this. So I think we should take more advantage of that.
All throughout Central Mass, and whatever board you're on, it doesn't matter. We're all in the game together. So, and I'll be reaching out to other interpreters of other boards to ensure the next one we have, we can bring everybody together.
Yeah, so another thing on that same point that Dennis just brought up is we actually just completed our class. We had, I believe, 11 people pass the officials test this year. In the past, we've had coaches coming and going through that class that have become officials. Now, not all of them have stayed as officials, but they came in more or less to kind of understand the rules. Now, I look at the list and I see 4 or 5 guys that are coaches that are also officials at the same time. But we're more than happy to have coaches come in to this classroom session. It runs for about 8 weeks. It starts a Tuesday after Labor Day, and it ends November, the first Monday of November. We run it usually at St. John's High School, and we'd love to have coaches come in, or assistant coaches, or, you know, if you're a veteran coach that has a young assistant coach, or a young JV coach that wants to come in and really learn the rules, and understand them. I mean, that's what we do. That's our job as interpreter and as boards, is to teach the rules. So, I mean, really, if you want to reach out and just, you know, get somebody involved in that, we're not going to steal your coach from you, but in the summertime, they can go work some basketball and see the other side of it a little bit. So.
I recommend it for anybody who is in the coaching ranks, just to get a better familiarity with the rules and how they apply to things. So again, all in all, this is great. We're coming up on 50 minutes. I know everybody's time is valuable. This again is recorded. It'll be on our website as well as in our e-news. We'll get it out to individuals who may have missed it. But in the meantime, we want your feedback. If you're in this call tonight, so you'll get a form to fill out. And on the form, all I'm looking for is just yes, no, what do you like? What didn't you like? What can we do to offer up for it to be even better for you? And I'd like to schedule another one sometime after Christmas, probably right before beginning of January, and then one just about at the end of the season.
There is one more thing in the chat
Yeah.
from Rick that says, I thought when a player jumps in the air, catches the ball, lands in the backcourt, it's called the backcourt. So let's talk about that. I think I might have already covered this, but on a throw-in, if a player jumps from the front court, catches the ball and lands in the backcourt, that's okay on a throw-in because that line doesn't exist. The other time that doesn't get called or is no longer a backcourt is, say a team is pressing and a throw from A's backcourt is stolen by B. The kid catches the ball in the air in his front court and now lands in his backcourt. That is no longer a backcourt violation. It hasn't been for years, but that's one of those that people seem to groan at a lot, not necessarily coaches, but things. The other one that people groan at a lot is that player that dives on the floor for a loose ball and slides 15 feet with the ball and lands on their back. Everybody wants that to be a travel because they slid so far with control of the ball. They don't establish a pivot until they come to a stop. So if they're on their back, we all know their pivot becomes their butt. If they're on their stomach, their pivot becomes their stomach. They can't spin around on it, but they could actually come to a seated position if they're on their butt and start a dribble or throw a pass or call timeout. I think most coaches know that. You know, on occasion we'll have a newer coach or a younger coach or even a newer, older coach will complain about that. But those are some of the things that we try to teach our new officials. We'll ask them some questions, and it's amazing some of the answers we get.
Dave, on a designated throw-in on the end line, can you talk about the parameters of the box in which the designated throw-in person has? How far back they can go, or how far they can go to one side or the other?
Okay, so a spot, we're going to call it. We try to tell people it's a spot throw-in, and the designated spot is actually a 3-foot wide spot. So it's 3 feet wide, and it goes back from the end line or the sideline as far back as that player can go. So if the wall is 8 feet behind them, they can back off that line 8 feet. They have to keep some part of their body over the throw-in spot. So a player can step a full step to their left, as long as their right foot is still over the line. And then they can go back and take another full step to their right. And as long as their left foot is still over that, they're okay. So just because it's a spot throw-in, that doesn't mean the player can't move. So they could actually step side to side as long as they keep some portion of their body over the line. They have to release the ball within 5 seconds. They have to throw it directly onto the court, and they can't step over the line when they do it. So it is kind of a big steps that they can make. I mean, a player that puts their right foot onto the furthest foot and steps over could be out, their left foot could be outside of that box by 3 feet. So it's almost like a 6-foot area that they could cover as long as something is over it. It doesn't have to be on the ground. When they go to make the throw, and that foot can be up in the air as long as it's over the designated spot.
Gus, can a player throwing a ball in, can they have their foot on the line, or is that a violation?
So they can step on the line. They cannot step over the line because it is an out of bounds line. So when they step on the line, they are still considered out of bounds. But if any part of their foot actually breaks that line onto the court, they would have violated. So,
Any other questions?
no,
All right.
sounds good.
Listen, we really appreciate collaborating with everybody here tonight.
Hey, one more question. Can I get
Sure.
one more?
Absolutely.
Can Dave go over, when can a player, when throwing the ball in on an end line, touch the ball again? Okay, this is often miscalled in games. Okay, and what is the interpretation? He's making a throw in, and it goes off somebody. Can when he just can establish court presence again with 1 foot? Is that correct? Gets 1 foot.
Correct.
Does not have to get 2 feet in. Correct?
No, yeah, so on that whole term, a player out of bounds throws the ball and it goes off of B1. As soon as that player gets 1 toe in bounds and nothing out of bounds, they have gained court status. So then they could legally touch that basketball again. So it's just, as Dennis says, 1 foot in bounds.
Right, because many officials over the years have called that incorrectly, I
Yeah.
believe, because they say, no, somebody else has to touch the ball before the inbounder has possession or touches.
Well,
the ball.
yes, a
Well, they
player,
do.
it has to be legally touched on the floor before they can get it.
Is that the same saving it?
Yeah, so how's this one? A player runs, a pass goes over a player's head on a fast break and they're running out of bounds. They're almost out of bounds. They step, they throw the ball backwards onto the court. They run out of bounds. They can come back in bounds and be the first to get it, provided they cut 1 foot in bounds and nothing out of bounds.
It does not have to be 2 feet.
No, and in that case, it does not have to be touched by another player.
Yes.
On the save situation, a player running out of bounds coming back in. Is that what you're trying to get to, Dennis?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I was thinking on
Yeah.
a throw-in.
Well,
So yeah,
yeah.
on that saved ball, kid
Well,
just.
also on a throw in too,
Forward.
but I understand it has to
He's
touch
the first to
somebody,
get
but
it.
yeah.
Yeah,
So for
provided
clar-
he establishes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for clarification, if the guy throwing the ball out of bounds throws it off the defender's back, hits him when he's on the court, can the person passing the ball in then go and retrieve it once they've acquired court status?
As long as they put 1 foot on the ground.
Okay,
It's
you see
1
that
foot.
more often than not.
Yeah, one.
Coming on
any
a 5
part of the-
second.
Yeah, it can just be a toe.
Yep. But the
As long
ball
as
has to
it's
touch
out of bounds.
a player legally on the floor.
Right.
Yeah, on the throw and it touched the player legally on the floor.
Yeah. Thank you, Dave.
For clarification, Dave, what happens when you reach over the line as a defensive player on the person taking the ball out of bounds?
So on a throw in, the B player, ends up, say they reach through the plane. So they break that plane. It is a warning. We blow the whistle. We give a warning for delay a game, breaking the plane. It's a team warning. So that is a team warning for that. The same situation on throwing, player reaches through and touches the basketball. Technical foul, 2 shots for the offended team and the ball at midcourt. Another scenario that can happen, player reaches through the plane and hits the player. That would be an intentional foul, 2 shots to the offended player, and the ball back to the spot of the throw-in. So you'd have 3 different things that went on there in that case. But say a player reaches through the plane and touches the basketball. We have a technical foul. We also have a warning. We would put the warning in the book because you're only allowed 1 warning for 4 different things. And the warnings are breaking the plane for delay a game, striking the ball after a made basket, not having the court ready for play after a timeout, and huddling during a free throw. Those are all things that you would get a warning for. And the second offense of that, of any of those things, is supposed to be a technical foul. So we tell our guys somewhat not to be scientists in that, but yes, you have to enforce those rules and have to give the warning as needed. The warning should go in the book and the head coach should be told. As far as other warnings, say a head coach is not behaving or somebody on their staff is not behaving, you can be given a warning now. The officials have the right to turn around and say, "Coach, that's enough. You know, we're no longer listening to those things." And it might be an assistant coach. I am no longer going to listen to your assistant coach. However, you don't need to be given a warning before a technical foul. We've had guys that have been hit with a technical foul for just basically going off on the officials. They all know they deserve the technical, but they, for some reason, thought that they should have gotten the warning because that warning had come into play. Well, the warning is not necessary. If the technical foul is warranted, you should get it in things. So the warning is not necessary. However, we do now have that. They put that in a couple years ago, that there is a warning. My feeling is I try to tell the officials, especially young officials, 3 W's. You walk them, you warn them, and you whack them. So walk them back the first time when they're talking to you and out of the box. "Coach, let's move this way. I'm listening to you. Here we go. All right, get you back over there." The second time, maybe, "Coach, here's your warning. The international hand goes up for warning. That's enough." The third time is, enough is enough. We'll give you the technical foul. But like I say, hear what you're supposed to hear and ignore the rest of the stuff. So
We hope that the officiating that you have at your games they're doing a good enough job where you're not having to micromanage what they're doing out there. If you ever get to a point where you find that the officiating is less than acceptable, we would ask you please reach out to any members of the board. They can, or signers, as you probably do anyway. We take it pretty seriously. We want people to know their rules and how to apply them to the best level as possible. No one's perfect. They're not perfect coaches. They're not perfect refs. But at the end of the day, we owe it to the game to be as best that we possibly can be.
And I do get phone calls on Friday nights and Saturday mornings from coaches. And I'm perfectly willing to take those phone calls if it's a rule interpretation, if it's a question. Years ago when that team control foul came in, we had officials that they were on a rebound. They weren't given the one-on-ones like they should have been because they thought it was team control, and there was all kinds of stuff going on. So I am willing to take phone calls pretty much at any time and stuff, or emails. So
Okay,
time
folks.
for the Patriots kickoff.
I saw that come up. All right, if you don't have any further questions, I do want to say thank you very much for your time here tonight. It's a great start for us coming together for the season. We want to wish all of you a wonderful Thanksgiving. More importantly, all the luck in your preparation for your seasons to start up. We hope everything goes as well as can be. We hope that you stay safe and we get to have an enjoyable basketball season for all of us, whether you're coaching or reffing. So thank you so much. If you want to stay on with us, you can. But other than that, on behalf of all of us here tonight, we want to say thank you for taking part in this first session.
Thank you. Very well done.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everybody.
Thank you, fellas. Great job.
Hi, guys. I got one more question.
Sure.
Okay.
I've seen it called both ways. What is, and I watch NBA, so sometimes the rules are different. Missed shot, getting your own rebound. What's the rule?
Interpretation. Oh, go ahead, Gus.
If it is deemed a try for goal by the officials, so a shot
Okay.
attempt, you can do whatever you want. You can go
Okay.
get it. So that big kid that's a real stiff
Yep.
shoots over the backboard, over the basket to the other side and goes and catches it and now lays it back in, nothing wrong with it.
Sure,
The way we
sure.
look at it, Mr. Loftus, who was the interpreter before me and pretty great guy, would say that if you shoot the ball, you're reborn. You basically can do whatever you want.
Yep.
As long as it's a try for your own goal. To your own.
Yep.
win.
I wish it was different because I hate when they put interpretation in you guys' hand. Not that you can't handle it, it's just the interpretation can be, I guess, interpreted differently on a shot. But
So usually when a coach disagrees with me like with that, my response to them is, Coach, it doesn't have to be a good shot. It just needs to be a shot.
yes,
In
again, it
other words,
doesn't happen
when the
much.
complaint
but
comes in. Are you
Yeah.
kidding me, Gus? You called that a shot? Yes.
Most of the
Very cool.
time, if the officials have some time on the floor, they can determine between a pass and a shot pretty easily.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Pretty easily. 1%, I think where you'd run into some sort of gray area. But at least the guys that I know are pretty solid with that. I think newer officials.
I agree. You guys do an awesome job, and I'm glad you picked out because basketball gets tough when it's those interpretations, the Euro step, when they pick the ball up. That's all the gray areas we're talking about. So
Right.
it's not easy, and the game's changing as well as what we have to do. So
Sure.
thank you guys. I appreciate everything you're doing.
No worries,
No.
it's just the beginning. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
heading in the right
It is.
direction. Appreciate you chiming in as well.
Oh, no problem. Happy to. I love this stuff. So enjoy the holiday, and we'll see you guys on the court.
Outstanding.
Great,
Thank
thank you.
Bye.
Kill the recording and.